The night a rookie cop put a gun in my face in that parking garage, I honestly thought I might die. What he actually did was set his own badge on fire in front of the whole country and drag me into a fight I had been trying to believe the system could handle without me. My name is Marcus Harrington, Superior Court Judge, father, son of a man who told me the law could be a shield if you held it right, and on that night, under buzzing fluorescent lights, wet concrete, and exhaust fumes, none of that mattered. I was just a black man standing next to a nice car. Someone decided did not match my face. You know what I mean when you feel somebody already wrote your character in their head before you open your mouth. It was late. I had been on the bench since 7 a.m. 14 hours of hearings and sentencings, a biopsy report in my briefcase telling me to slow down if I wanted to see my grandkids someday. All I wanted was to park, go home, and be a regular tired man for one evening. I pulled into my usual spot on level 2 judge's permit on the dash. Nothing unusual. Then I saw those red and blue flashes slide across the hood like trouble, heard a car door slam and a sharp voice slice through the quiet, hands where I can see them step away from the car. I turned calm but confused, saw him, Officer Ethan Caldwell, young stiff hand resting way too close to his holster for a parking check. "Is there a problem, officer?" I asked, voice steady. "Step away from the vehicle," he repeated a little louder like volume made it law. I stayed where I was, showed my hands. "I park here every day, I can show you my ID." He scanned the car, then me, like the math offended him. ID now. No explanation, no probable cause, just that old familiar edge. I have been black long enough to know that feeling rising in my chest is not paranoia, it's memory. So I did what I have told my own son to do. I over-explained. "Officer, my name is Judge Marcus Harrington, Superior Court. My credentials are in my inside pocket on the left. I am going to reach for them slowly, all right?" He did not blink, did not nod. "Keep your hands where I can see them." He snapped louder, voice cracking in the echo thumb brushing the holster. On the next level up, my friend Tyrone had just finished a workout. He saw the cruiser, saw me, saw Ethan's stance, and recognized him as the same guy who stopped him months earlier for smelling suspicious. No ticket, just humiliation. This time, Tyrone raised his phone and hit record, quiet as a witness in the rafters. Down below, I lifted my hands a little higher, more for that unseen camera than for Ethan. "You are making a mistake," I told him. "You can explain that downtown," he said, stepping closer. Boots loud on wet concrete. You could feel it, that thin line where ego and fear start to drown judgment. I tried one last time to keep us on the right side of it. "Okay, I am reaching into my coat slowly for my badge." I moved my hand a few inches. In his mind, that tiny motion turned into a threat. "Back up!" he shouted, lunging instead of breathing. His forearm slammed into my chest. My feet slid and my shoulder crashed into a concrete pillar so hard the sound echoed. My briefcase flew open, papers and my judge ID scattering across the ground. When the spinning stopped, his gun was out, pointed down at me, hands shaking. "Stay where you are!" he yelled like I was a charging bull and not a middle-aged man on the floor with one arm gone numb. I looked at the gun, then at the badge glinting near my hand, and I told him as calmly as I could, "Officer, you just assaulted a judge." I watched the realization punch through his face, and for half a second I thought maybe he would own it. Instead, he grabbed his radio like a life raft. "Dispatch suspect slipped while resisting verbal commands. Minor accident," he said, lying as cleanly as if he practiced that line in the mirror. Up above, Tyrone whispered, "Not this time," and kept filming. That was the end of Act 1, me in an ambulance, Ethan standing there with his gun and his lie, and a 40-something second video that was about to introduce him to the rest of America. The hospital was bright cold and familiar fractured shoulder pain meds. Nurses whispering, "Is that Judge Harrington?" My phone buzzing nonstop. Tyrone sent me the clip. No commentary, just raw footage. I watched it once with the sound off, saw my own patience, his shove the impact, the gun my ID on the ground, and I felt this tired anger wash over me like I had just watched the opening scene of a story I had heard 1,000 defendants tell. My son Jason rushed in, eyes wide, phone in hand. "Dad, you're everywhere," he said. "They're calling him a racist rookie. They're calling you the judge in the garage." Trying to turn trauma into a meme. "Why didn't he stop when you told him who you were?" he asked. I stared at the ceiling and said the only honest thing I could. I did. He just didn't believe it mattered. Overnight, the video blew up local news. Then national protests forming outside Crestfall Police Headquarters statements spin the whole circus. But the real twist came quiet in a folder on Captain Jamal Thompson's desk, and in a leak to a reporter who had the guts to publish it. Inside was a psychological evaluation from Dr. Alicia Brooks, done during academy training, flagging Ethan for strong implicit bias, poor impulse control, recommending suspension and retraining. Under that, a sign-off from his supervisor, Sergeant Lydia Ramirez, who admitted later she buried it because she didn't want to ruin his career. You want to talk about a twist, finding out your shoulder hit that pillar because a warning that could have stopped him died in someone's inbox. That was the moment this stopped being about one scared kid with a gun and became about every person who saw the fire hazard and walked past it. Calls poured in, some begging me to forgive publicly and heal the city, others telling me to take them for everything and make an example. You know how people get loud with other people's wounds. In the middle of all that, my friend and civil rights attorney Elena Vasquez sat at the foot of my hospital bed like it was just another case file. "Marcus," she said, "we can go federal section 1983 officer city department, the whole chain. We ask for real money and real reform, but once we move, you cannot climb back on the bench and pretend this never happened." I thought about every time I'd told some kid with cuffs on, "The system can work," and I heard my own words chasing me around that room. "File it," I said. 15 million and we tie it to reform so this pain buys more than my medical bills. When we filed, people argued harder than the lawyers. Some said I was cashing in on my title. Some said if I were not a judge, they'd have buried me already. Some said 15 million wasn't enough for what that video represented. I listened, but I'd already made my peace. This was never just my story. In court months later, I sat where defendants usually stand, facing a jury under the same motto I'd sworn to uphold. The prosecution rolled Tyrone's 4K clip on a giant screen. No editing, no excuses. They put Dr. Brooks on the stand to explain how her report was ignored. They put Lydia up there to admit through tears that she chose loyalty over honesty. They traced a line from one buried document to one broken shoulder to a whole city's broken trust. When it was my turn, I did not perform. I spoke the way I'm speaking to you now. I followed the law that night. I told them. I parked where I was assigned. I identified myself. I did everything I've been telling young men in my community to do for years, and it still wasn't enough to make him see me as anything but a problem he needed to pin down. If a judge's badge on the floor cannot slow his hand, what chance does a kid with no title have? You could feel it land. The jury came back fast. Guilty of violating my civil rights under color of law. The city and department ordered to pay 15 million plus, submit to federal oversight, mandatory bias training, psychological reviews that can't be buried this time. Ethan stood there in that cheap gray suit, looking like the walls had closed in. The judge gave him a suspended sentence with mandatory therapy. Community service called it a chance to change, not a pass. And the room split down the middle in their reactions. Some wanted him in a cell forever. Others thought he was a scapegoat for a system that made him. And honestly, there is truth floating in all of that. With the settlement we built, the Harrington Justice Fund turned headlines into help for people who don't have cameras or connections. Jamal agreed to lead the reform unit. Lydia, after her suspension, used her mistake as a case study for new recruits sitting in front of them, saying, "I thought protecting him meant silence. I was wrong." Months later, after the noise cooled and the city settled into its new version of itself, I was driving home at dusk and passed a warehouse out by the highway, saw a lone janitor sweeping the loading dock, shoulders a little too familiar. It was Ethan. No badge, no gun, just a man working a quiet job. Our eyes met for half a second. There was fear there, shame, something like gratitude twisted up in it. I didn't stop, didn't lecture, didn't tell him he was forgiven or damned. I just gave him a small nod, a human one, to say, "I see you now," the way he refused to see me. And he nodded back. People ask if I got justice. I got a verdict. I got reforms on paper that are already helping cases that would have died in the dark. I got to show my son what it looks like not to roll over when the system that raised you tries to gaslight you. That's something. But justice isn't a movie ending. It's a conversation and a responsibility, and that's where you come in. So tell me what you think. Was 15 million fair? Was the sentence for Ethan too soft? Or the right kind of hard? Should a buried report take down careers? Or is that the price of looking away? And if that video had never existed, if I hadn't been a judge but just another guy in a hoodie next to a car, people don't think he fits. Do you believe we'd be talking about this at all? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this if it hits something you've seen or lived hit like. So these stories keep reaching people who need them, and subscribe if you want to go past headlines and really talk about what justice, accountability, and second chances should look like in the real world.